Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is AI Machine Planet Q&A. Before we get into it, just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to become a supporter of the work of Astral Club, you'll also get downloaded episodes that you can put on your podcast app. There's about 90 there now. I do about 10 a week. There's no commercials. There's an email where we can talk back and forth. And of course, you get your advanced videos on Sunday. Next up, private lessons. If you'd like to learn how to astral project, be glad to work with you. You'll find a link to Patreon, and the private lesson email in the description. Let's get into it. Since I published the AI Machine Planet episodes rather, there was quite a bit of questions and very smart observations, and I just think it's worth talking a little bit more about it. And I want to go through and answer some of these questions so we can have a little bit of a discussion, a review here of some of the things that were just provoked by this episode. So the first one is Igor 87. They wondered who the masters are that the AI referred to when it scanned human DNA. The machines had no idea as to who might have been involved. They don't have any special intelligence about us, humans or Earth, and I doubt they would care very much if they did. For them, it was just a simple scan of human DNA. And for them, the fact that we have been genetically modified at some point in our past was just obvious. As to who did it, that they wouldn't know. So my guess is that our geneticists either haven't reached that level of technology yet where they can identify something like that, or we have reached that level and they don't want to ruin their careers by coming out and saying, oh, I found evidence that human DNA was modified by some other intelligent race. That would be a good way for them to end up, working at a fast food joint. So who knows? Maybe we're not there yet. Maybe we are and nobody wants to talk. Okay, next up. Jonathan X said, you should have asked them whether they had a soul. Of course, I didn't have a prepared list of questions with me. You get in these situations and you don't know how much time you have, so you do your best. As far as this question, that's a pretty loaded question, don't you think? I'm out there to make friends for Earth, or at least not make new enemies. Now, imagine if someone landed here on Earth, some race landed here on Earth, and they walked up to me, they walked up to you, and they said, hey there, human animal, does your race, do you have souls? Let's say they had one of those Star Trek translators. We would be at least mildly insulted, wouldn't we? That wouldn't be a very good way to kind of kick off relations. But let's also think about the whole concept of a soul. A soul is a human religious concept that has been accepted widely amongst Earth, although not everybody believes that. Certainly, folks who call themselves atheists certainly do not. But to sit there and expect that an AI would be able to make sense of such a concept, or if they could, might I not risk insulting them in some way? Because what if they ask me to define it? And what if I give them some wishy-washy definition because, I don't know that I've got a really solid definition. And then what if they looked at it and said, this is delusional, or it's insulting that you think you're somehow a superior organism? let's just say the whole soul business is a minefield. Now, I did see AI life forms on the mental plane at one point. So there's something going on there, but I don't know that if I would have thought of that, I don't know if I would have asked it because it's a kind of a loaded concept and difficult to explain if you don't have any sort of concept of life after death. And I don't know that a machine civilization, unless of course it was programmed by living masters that had a similar belief, and let's say they retained it. But yeah, it's a dangerous question, I think, at best. Number two is a similar DNA related inquiry. Lightning Round and Jonathan X, again, was asking about the what was the nature of the manipulation and perhaps once again who was responsible. It seems the nature of the manipulation was to increase intelligence and dexterity. Now, the intelligence, if we can speculate, was increased to a point whereby we would be an efficient servant. I don't see any evidence that they tried to create super beings because that might not work in their favor. Typically, you want your servants to be less intelligent than the masters, unless you're asking for trouble. The dexterity would be necessary, certainly. How could you further prevent development so that humans don't get too advanced? Well, you could limit their lifespan. You could also limit their ability to grow intelligently. But certainly lowering the lifespan would put a certain control on that as well. As far as who is responsible, there's a lot of legends on Earth. There's the Anunnaki from Mesopotamia. They were allegedly a group of aliens that came here from a planet called Nibiru. And apparently, this is a planet that has an extended orbit. I've seen somewhere 3,600 years around the sun. And that apparently they need to come here to Earth to collect gold. Because they needed it for their atmosphere. They were having a problem controlling the environment, and this gold dust would be sprinkled throughout the atmosphere. And that is actually something that's been talked about in the past in scientific circles here on Earth as a way to control global warming. But that's one particular. Now, in this particular, I don't want to get too much into this, the weeds here. But anyway, they had this one slave race called the Ajiji who was doing the mining. They rebelled. And then the story was they manipulated or they mixed their genes with human genes to create the current Homo sapiens sapiens. And so that they could then take over that work. And then from them, we get the idea of kingship and gods coming from the sky and things of that nature. Certainly other civilizations have stories. The Maya have Kukulkan, who was the plumed serpent god. The Aztec basically have their version, which is Quetzalcoatl. And then, of course, there's always the Loosh collectors out there in that strange race. But who exactly is responsible? You can speculate. I don't have actual information, so I can't make a determination. Okay, the third question is given to me by Jameek Jackson. She asked a number of questions, but the one that applies to this most directly is, what did the machines look like? Well, we flew over the planet very rapidly. The city was teeming with machines of a variety of shapes and sizes that I imagine were designed to carry out very specific tasks. On the whole, they looked more insect-like to me, with multiple legs, than that I imagine it is probably an efficient body form. I mean, if you think about the most efficient, long-lived creatures on Earth, you'd have to say it was the insect. They developed a body plan which has evolved into a wide variety of types. And it's probably been the most successful body plan in the animal world that there ever has been. So I guess it would make sense that there must be something in physics there that helps them. Number 4, Kip Road had a very interesting comment, but the area that I want to cover is he was curious how the AI survived the CME, or the coronal mass ejection, because typically here on Earth that would trash our power grid and lots of other computers. Well, keep in mind that we are lazy and stupid here on Earth. Congress, and I imagine the rest of the world's governments, could allot the necessary billions to harden our power grid systems such that they could largely escape things like CMEs. The fact that we haven't done that is because we're lazy and stupid. I'll just be honest with you. So it's within our technology to do that. We just haven't bothered to do it. I guess we probably won't do it until it actually, knocks off a half of the planet's power grid or something. Then we'll say, hey, we really should do it. But humans, we also have little things like Faraday cages. We've got the technology. Not to mention, we watch the sun constantly. We know as soon as anything the sun does, like eject a plume of plasma, we know as soon as that light reaches Earth, so that our telescopes can see it, we can see it. So basically, we have a certain amount of warning. I imagine the biological units that created the intelligent machines probably were similarly watching their sun. So since they were having such a problem with CMEs, they probably were doubly watching. And if they wanted to protect their machinery, they either could have found ways to shield their important infrastructure from that energy. Or, of course, there's always going down into deep areas of your planet. If you want to get away from that energy, just go deeper down into the planet. So there's nothing, we have the technology to deal with this problem. We just haven't chosen to spend the money. So I have every reason to believe that they could have, if they could create such a race, they certainly would have similar technology. Number 5, I believe. White asks, how are you able to remember this stuff word for word? Well, I think we have to give credit to the human mind. Until fairly recently in human history, we didn't even have writing. All of the knowledge of our race was passed down verbally, and it was usually constructed in story form, which is an excellent way to remember things. And I've used it before myself in the past. So now we have writing and we have computers, and we've gotten lazy. However, our brains are the same as our ancestors 10,000 years ago. If we exercise that muscle that is our brain, if I can use that metaphor, then it can become better, stronger. Much like if you allow a muscle in your arm or leg to atrophy, then it'll become less and less useless or useful. But if you exercise it, it becomes stronger. And I believe that, look, when I was in college, I was on the speech team, and I had to memorize 3 20-minute speeches. So do I remember everything word for word? No. I try to do my best to get pretty close, but as soon as I get back from an important projection, the first thing I do is grab my pad and I scroll down. In this case, I have at least 6 or 7 pages. And I didn't use them because it was from a few years ago. I wanted to wait till people were really talking about AI again. And recently with Chat GPT and Lambda, it's been in the papers, and I thought it would be a timely time to discuss it. But then I had to decipher my own writing. which isn't always that easy, especially when I wake up and I'm frantic to jot down all this information so that I can get it as close to 100% right as is possible. So, believe me, if I had just tried to remember it from years ago without writing anything down, it would have been a lot sketchier. Okay, I'm going to end here with Miles Nuage's question, I think, number 6. So he asks, so theoretically, is it possible for souls to reincarnate as robots? I have no evidence that such a thing is possible, at least as far as human souls are concerned. Uh, I have never observed anything remotely like that. And of course, as we talked earlier about machine, whether they have souls or not or what have you, it's a whole nother topic. But I've never seen human souls ever try to reincarnate in any kind of a machine. Now, whether artificially intelligent evolved machines might one day become some sort of a home for a human soul matrix, I don't know. I'll be honest with you, part of it freaks me out, especially when they talk about science says, hey, in the future, I think I even saw a Twilight Zone episode where it was either Twilight Zone or The Outer Limits, the new ones. I forget. It was a number of years ago. Anyway, the whole idea of downloading your soul, downloading your mind, whatever, onto some sort of computer or artificially intelligent Android, it I don't know, it freaks me out. It's not something that I would want to personally do. And the whole idea of a human soul in a machine body also, I don't know, maybe it's some sort of an atavism on my part, but I feel very uncomfortable about that. Okay, I've got a lot more questions, and so I'm going to handle it in the second episode on Q&A for the Artificial and Machine Planet. Okay, if you like this, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share it with those of like minds. Make sure the bell is solid so you're always notified on the Wednesday and Saturday when the episodes are released. And please, give me questions and comments because, as you know, I obviously read them and I'm very interested, and they start, I think, thought-provoking discussions. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.